Never think it. This is beautiful. This is perfect. Okay. Oh my God, I was already nervous and now I'm even more nervous. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, please subscribe. And if you're a subscriber, then welcome back. Today, we have such a treat for you, as promised. We have a interview with Jeremy Swillinger. He is a broker in Manhattan. I know him for several years now, and I wanted to bring him on to inspire all the entrepreneurs, artists alike. He's a wonderful human being, an extraordinary broker. He's so talented, so ambitious. And I believe this interview will showcase just that. We have some questions for him. So why don't we start? Welcome, Jeremy. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. It's a beautiful day in New York City, and it's good to be back out. Hopefully past the whole pandemic lockdown, people are out and about, and it feels good to be here. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure and everybody else's pleasure to have you. It's such a treat. Tell the people what you do.
In a nutshell, I make people's dreams come true. Well, at least from the perspective of where folks get to call their personal sanctuary and, where they get to rest their head at night. I'm a New York City real estate agent. Some people refer to me as a broker. The words are interchangeable. My clients consist of buyers and sellers and investors, trusts, estates, people that would like to own their own piece of the Big Apple. I handle sales in cooperative buildings, referred to as co-ops, condos, townhouses, commercial properties, including multifamily buildings. I handle some medical spaces, particularly on Fifth Avenue and Park Avenue, a lot of plastic surgeons. I handle some restaurant spaces, including Gotino and a couple others down in the West Village, and other types of retail. As examples, my two most recent transactions include representing a buyer that signed a $7.8 million contract for a 4-bedroom apartment overlooking the city at the new Olympia condominium, it's a new development right in the heart of Dumbo in Brooklyn. I also just brought to market a commercial semi-multi-family building at 805, 807 Lexington, which is, if you're familiar with Bloomingdale's, it's just a couple blocks north, right on 62nd Street. It's asking $15.5 million. It's all about location in New York City, and this is it. It's a property that has commercial, residential, retail. That's sort of a snapshot of what I do. These are the transactions that I work on. But my business certainly takes me to all corners of, the New York City real estate industry. It's fun, I'll tell you that much.
What do you think separates you from other brokers in New York City?
It's there's 35,000 other real estate agents in New York City. Can you imagine that? Enough to fill like the Giants stadium, football stadium. That's a lot of brokers. For me, I know how important it is, to listen to people and, try to act accordingly. I sincerely care about my clientele. I'm not afraid to walk away from money if it's something that, could tarnish my reputation or my client's future. I know the product inside and out and everything that could impact it. In New York City, it's not just about knowing the neighborhood or the construction type of a building, but also how each floor and every unit within a building offers, different attributes that ultimately affect the property value. Whether it be, a unique 2-apartment combination, an apartment that faces a certain direction, north, south, perhaps one that has blocked views or just clears, the neighboring building to then allow for direct Central Park views. I understand how, from a macro level, certain groups of buyers will steer clear from considering certain floors. For instance, you've got the 4th floor, the 14th floor, both numbers which are considered very unlucky in China, or properties with an address containing the number 74, which is also considered unlucky. It's the small details that, allow my clients to move forward with, I guess, a winning investment or a profitable investment that they'll both cherish as their home, or they'll see as a winning investment vehicle in their overall financial profile. They have each of my clients have certain goals, whether it's to have a certain family lifestyle, or, to have cash flow on a returning investment. So
why do you think now is a great time to buy or rent in New York City?
I've been here since 2002, which is right when New York City started to recover from the 9/11 attacks, and everybody thought downtown was done and over with. But, New York City has weathered many storms and has seen many highs and lows in the market. New York City is only growing despite what the media puts out. Listen, come April of 2020 last year during COVID, the cover of New York Times is New York City dead because everyone's fleeing. You can't really look into what media describes as what's really happening in the market. A lot of my clients, yes, they did leave New York City. However, they didn't sell their properties. They fled to, the Jersey Shore, the East Hamptons of the world, upstate New York. But the key factor is they never sold their property because they believe in New York City. They know people want to be here, whether it's for the atmosphere, the hustle of the city, the restaurants, the entertainment, Broadway, the people. No other city in the U.S. offers this. Outside of the U.S., that's a different mentality. You've got, Sao Paulo, which, if you want to go there, good luck. I mean, your dollar is declining. At least their dollar is declining, I should say. You look at different factors in China. You've got health, concerns with the air that you breathe. It's just so contaminated. It's a domestic. It's hugely domesticated, where everyone in America wants to be here, at least own a piece of New York City or experience a piece of New York City. Whereas places like London, it's top 10 cities in the country, but it's very localized. You don't have as many foreign investors coming there. I think right now, the question you asked is, why do people want to buy or rent here? Why is it a good time? If you ask me this question in 2-3 months, I think I'll have a different answer. Right now, this is also the current state of the market. The borders have yet to open up. People who are buying right now are locals. These are people that know New York City in and out and believe in it, and at least in the future of it. Once the borders reopen, which in November, if you're Brazilian, you can't physically get here to America. Once the international borders open up, that's going to bring such a huge demand of international buyers back to New York City. So do I think right now is a good time to buy? Yes, because in 4 or 5 months, when the international clientele is going to be your competition, I think that perspective of is it a good time to buy right now, I think that's going to slowly diminish come Q1, Q2 of 2022.
Tell us a little bit, if you will, about some notable clients that you had and you famous people. We're always curious about that.
Well, I guess I sort of have to tread lightly here, right? Because
whatever you can share, but
So I was fortunate enough. One of the first few years that I moved here, I was introduced to the CFO of a big oil and gas company, Schlumberger. I then became the company's go-to New York City real estate agent for all of their execs. Have closed, half a dozen deals with that firm alone. And my name has sort of been passed around to the oil and gas industry, primarily in Houston. So I've represented a lot of, Fortune 500 companies. I'm working with the founder of Natura Cosmetics, based out of Brazil. Representing them. We're talking the billionaire status here. I've represented several Hollywood stars, from Steve Guttenberg to, I'm not going to go into other names because of anonymity. Some people in the fashion industry. New York City is a global, fashion hub. Some people you might know yourself, which I believe is a gentleman by the name of Zane Toy. From Yana Ben-Huri, who's all couture. I think your company's YB Couture. And I believe you yourself has a fashion line. Well, it's spectacular. And I consider you one of my closest clients. So, my clientele ranged from Hollywood execs, fashion gurus, to execs of huge companies, from the Schlumbergers of the world to Natura Cosmetics, to a lot of the board members of Goldman Sachs. So my name's out there. I get passed around in the industry, and I think that is one thing that keeps my business prospering, because a lot of these clientele, a lot of these companies have execs moving and leaving New York City, whether it's go to Mountain View, whether it's go back to Houston. So there's always a lot of transactions that they need handled just for them, just for their companies themselves.
What made you interested in real estate in the first place? How did you start?
I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. It's very Midwest. My family, my father, I should say, and my grandfather both owned several multifamily properties in Cincinnati. And that was really my first taste of real estate, watching them take care of the property and create a landlord-tenant relationship, which I recognize as being very important at a young age. It's one thing to rent a property. It's another to keep a tenant happy, which will in turn, incentivize them to pay rent and take care of the property themselves. I had a nice growing up, excellent public school, went to the Ohio State University, and I worked throughout college. It wasn't so much because I needed the money, but I wanted the experience, because this was my passion. I worked for a real estate company of one of the largest campus housing companies in Columbus, Ohio. Analyzed potential investment properties, advised on rents, helped reposition some properties, and that led me to want to get a taste of a bigger city, that could offer boundless real estate opportunities.
Right.
Hence why I moved to New York City in 2002. So here I am.
How was it to you, New York City, when you first moved here? What were your impressions, etc.?
2002, there was no Zillow, there was no Street Easy. It was a very boots to the ground type effort that needed to be made to get into the business. To learn the market, I physically walked up and down every single street. And that's how I got to know the buildings. There was no Google Maps back then. There was no, directory of looking at floor plans for apartment 4F at 130 75th Street. This was all going to either the county clerk's office downtown or going to the New York Public Library and physically looking up these printout floor plans of buildings. They were built in the 30s, 20s, 1920s, 30s, 40s. They didn't have the internet back then, and they didn't scan all these documents. So I physically had to go and look up these documents. When I first broke into the business, I was doing on a weekly basis, probably 5,000 physical mailings to individuals.
Wow.
Now you send out an email with one click of a button.
Right.
I was sending out these mailings, and I was licking the envelopes and licking the stamps. This is not when they had the sticker stamps. This is when I was doing physical mailings, and I would walk out the next, that evening with paper cuts all over my tongue.
Oh my God.
The business has changed. People, as I said, there's been ups and downs in the city, at least in the market. When there's a lot of layoffs called 2008, a lot of people, ex-attorneys, ex-Wall Streeters, they saw the money being made in New York City real estate. So they thought, hey, let's give it a try. So the competition has always changed, and the industry has certainly come to a higher level of expectations. When I first started in the industry, it was very, to get your real estate license, you really had to just take a simple test. So the barriers to entry were very low. So the competition was not, I don't want to say the wisest, but it wasn't folks that were ex-attorneys, ex-grad student, ex-Wall Streeters. It was people that maybe had a high school degree. So I think my knowledge sort of set me out from the rest, at least back then. Now it's much more competitive. It's, you've got people who stay in New York City much, much longer and have developed relationships. And it's now a lot of second careers, not because they retired and go into a new industry, but people who've gotten laid off, these are execs from the fashion industry, from the advertising industry, the marketing industry. These are smart people with deep Rolodexes, and that's my competition. But knowledge is power, and I feel like based on experience, it's always going to set me apart from people that are just starting in the industry, hoping to turn a penny.
Well, it isn't just that. Talk a little bit about what sets you apart. And I think it's my profound opinion. The reason I even wanted to have you on my channel is because, well, first of all, I like you very much as a person, but also there's something about you that completely sets you apart from a regular, the reputation of a New York City broker. Everybody knows how cutthroat, how savage they are, even with their clients and their coworkers. And I did a summer in real estate in New York, and that was enough for me to quit and say, this is not for me. And your personality is just very soothing, very calm, understanding, patient. Please explain, first of all, how do you even manage to do that? And second, how do you make this work in such an environment?
I've noticed with other real estate agents in the cities that many of them will just get you to the table and close on the property with you. They get their permission, and then the client, never hears from them again. I think a great attribute that separates me from other agents is that once I close on that transaction with my client, the expectations that I did them a good job and guided them accordingly. I continue taking care of my clients for years to come. I keep them updated on the market and check in on them to see how their home is working out. I think this is one of the reasons why I think it's a 96 or 97% retention rate with past clients. Nice. It's not like I need to advertise myself and draw up new business, because the clients I've established over the past, 15, 20 years just keep coming back to me. Their children buy apartments, their colleagues buy apartments, and they're always putting my name out there as, someone you need to call right away. I help guide my clients through every part of the process. It's my passion. I think that sort of shows through sort of my sales pitch. It's my drive. I ensure this transaction that they're making, one of the largest, probably if not the single largest transaction of their life, goes as smoothly as possible. It's the inexperienced that sort of fumble and pisses up clients off, because listen, New York City real estate's a beast of its own compared to at least buying single family homes outside in the suburbs. You've got co-op boards, you've got not single family homes, but multifamily properties here in townhouses that are in historical districts or in landmark districts that you might be making an investment and expect to do something with that property, renovate it or whatnot, and realize, good luck, you can't do anything with it because the city won't allow you. So it's that deep knowledge and having seen the hurdles that some of my purchasers have gone through that helps me translate, my skills into successful stories for my future clients.
Where do you get your inspiration? How do you inspire yourself on a daily basis? Or is somebody like a role model that you kind of are greatly inspired? Talk about that for a little bit.
One person I shouldn't say person because it's a family, the Tigre family. This is an old school New York family dating back to the early 1900s, late 1800s. They aren't really publicly known, but own a huge portfolio of property in the city. I'm their sole real estate broker and help advise them throughout the years. Originally, their patriarch started buying all types of properties in the city. This is when you can get a 6-story walk up in Lower East Side for $5 because it was, it was inhabited by, drug kingpins and hookers. Wow. I admire them because of their, the way they've treated their tenants. It's with unbelievable respect. And I tried to push that onto my clients with respect. During COVID, when a significant portion of their residents weren't paying their rent, this family received 98% of rents. maybe a little bit less, 96, 97%. But that 2 or 3% loss was because their retail tenants were struggling. So instead of taking these tenants to housing court, they reduced or in a couple of times forgave most of the rent. These were small businesses, and the respectful landlord that they are, they did what they can to keep these small businesses afloat, these family businesses. And in return, I guarantee these tenants will be long-term paying tenants. Everybody needs a break once in a while, right? So I looked up to them just because of the way they treat people. And I feel that transpires in my business because, what goes around comes around. If you respect somebody, I think they'll gain your loyalty and trust as you go through the process.
But is there some kind of a person, like a spiritual teacher, somebody who writes books? Is there somebody you follow that inspires you?
Yeah, I don't really have a spiritual person. Maybe my dog. Well, she doesn't respond quickly. She can look at me the right way, and I can read her correctly in terms of giving me some advice. But I love a gentleman by the name of Tom Ferry. He's someone I follow. He's a personal coach for real estate agents, and he's someone that gets you out of your comfort zone because a lot of that is what it takes to be successful in New York City. He helps elevate my salesmanship skills. I also listen to a guy named Pat Hyben. You can Google him. He's a podcast. It's called Real Estate Rockstars. Just full of energy, and I get to hear stories not just about local New York City real estate, but about real estate sales from a national perspective. I also follow a guy named Michael LaFido. Again, very energetic. He's wonderful. His podcast is Luxury Listing Specialist. He talks about, the higher end of the market and how dealing with that clientele is sometimes tougher, sometimes easier. But it's a much different industry than working with your common first-time buyer. It's very relatable to dealing with my clientele in the city. So those are 2 or 3 people that I follow and get to listen to.
That's really nice. Talk about a little bit about your charitable involvement in this city. I think that's a wonderful thing that you do.
Yeah. So if you get one of my emails, you'll see on the bottom of it that a portion of my proceeds I donate to the FFB, which is the Foundation Fighting Blindness. My wife has something called Stargardt's disease, which is a juvenile form of macular degeneration. In the FFB funds, the funds that we raise supports the research and innovations for a lot of the scientists. A few of them, Dr. Sang out of Columbia University is by far one of the leading scientists in the eye industry, and we've granted, over the past 15 years, probably up to $7 or $8 million in just his studies. So it's allowed him to build a team of researchers that will eventually, be sold or be partnered with like a company like Genentech, which is it's a pharmaceutical company essentially. But they're looking, and hopefully in the next several years we'll be able to find a cure for blindness essentially. But that's a charity really dear to my heart, and it helps motivate me. And there's some wonderful people involved. And I don't want to say it's local. It's based out of Ohio originally, founded by Gordon Gunn, he founded a financial company and used to own the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he's sort of stepped away from the business, gone into retirement. But there's been several people that have taken over, and I think some of the people that have filled his shoes have taken this foundation to the next level. And that's what it's all about, giving back a little bit. And I think what goes around comes around.
Right. Still, I know you're very busy. I just have 2 last questions for you, if you can. How would somebody go about achieving what you did? I mean, this is a wonderful career you're having. If you were to talk to somebody who's starting out right now and wants to do what you do, what would your advice be?
Run. I'm just kidding. You know what? It's all about patience, right? It's all about finding your passion. A lot of these people just jump into the business because they see dollar signs. They watch $1 million listing, and they're like, "This guy can sell this that quickly." Well, you got to keep in mind it's just a TV show, right? So it's filled with rehearsed lines. Um, Patience is a virtue. I've got clients that um, I've worked with, and for instance, one family on 72nd Street, they flew into New York. I set up 4 showings, took them around. They ended up making an offer and got it accepted by the end of the day on the first apartment I ever showed them. Now, granted, a lot of agents will go out there and show them, the 75 apartments that are available within their criteria. But I knew how to eliminate the majority of that list and boil it down to the best of the best. And they were quickly able to determine the most suitable apartment for them. I mean, I don't want to waste my time showing 100 different apartments. And I highly agree that they probably wouldn't want the same thing either. Right. So I think all that was based on my listening skills. And I think that's important for newcomers, is instead of doing all the talking, listen, because that's just as important. On the other hand, I have amazing customers that, want to purchase their own piece of the Big Apple, but simply want to do it when they deem the timing is right. And it might take them 7 years, but I guide them and advise them throughout the years so they understand the market and really can make, an informed decision when that time comes.
Okay. All right. Last question. What if you had a magic wand, would you change anything about the past or make something easier for yourself in this whole endeavor?
I ask that question myself all the time. I probably should have purchased every single property I ever set foot in New York City. Because listen, it's only gone, up over the past 20 years. Yes, there was a couple blurbs in 2008, and then 2020 during COVID, the market went down, but the trajectory has always gone up. Sometimes slower in certain years than others, but compared to any other real estate investment outside of the city, you might get a 2 or 3% return over the course of, a couple years, just a slow increase. And while the New York City market is comparable to the equities market, it might be worth X amount today, and then tomorrow it could go down 20%. It's liquid. It's liquid because people always want to be here. And, if there's anything I would change in my past, yeah, I'd buy everything in sight, and I'd probably be retired by now. But I've stepped up and put my money where my mouth is, and now I have a portfolio. I've got a couple property investments here in the city, and it's worked out well. And I've got wonderful tenants that appreciate me as a good landlord, and I in turn respect them as a tenant and take care of them.
Okay, just one last question. If you were to sum up in 3 words, things that motivate you, or 3 things that motivate, just every day when you get up, what are the 3 things that make you the most excited and passionate about what you do and about life in general?
What motivates me? What's in 3 words?
Lights you up, lights your heart on fire and says, yes, I can do it today. Even if when you're upset or, not feeling so great.
You know what? It's always, sort of keeping my eye on the ball in the end. All I want is a simple thank you so much for helping me find my home. Because that's what it comes down to, right? Having a happy client, because I think a happy client in turn gives me referrals, and the more referrals, the more, higher number of transactions I do, and the more happier clients I have, and probably the more money I can make, right? Because the number of transactions equals more gross revenue, and more happier clients, my name spreads throughout the industry, and it just keeps going, hopefully domino effect.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this. I so appreciate you taking the time, and I'm sure people will love hearing about this. And I'm just sitting here listening to you. You're so passionate. You've motivated me, so I'm sure there's lots of people.
You got to have fun. Yes, there's ups and downs in this industry, and you'll get kicked to the floor a lot of disappointments, but for anyone looking to get into the business, it's all about how quickly you can, pick up your straps and get on to the next deal, right?
Right.
Because negativity will come with the industry. As long as you continue to put your smile on your face and make your clients happy, you'll be successful.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that's it.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.